We are going to continue our look at Isaiah chapter 40. We're glad that you've joined us again. Isaiah 40 starts out with, "Comfort, comfort my people," says your God. "Speak tenderly to Jerusalem." So we've been looking at Isaiah 40 and we're about halfway through. And this morning we're going to look at verses 18 through 20. Okay? Isaiah chapter 40, verses 18 through 20. And this is what it says. "With whom will you compare God? What likeness will you set up for comparison with him? An idol? Something that a smelter casts and a wood or a metal worker plates with gold and makes silver chains for? A poor person contributes wood for a pedestal that will not rot. He looks for a skilled craftsman and sets up an idol that will not fall over." Isaiah is almost mocking the idea of a idol. And you get somebody that works with metal, and you get him together, you get him the gold, and then you've got this guy, and he makes this god, and he makes this god out of gold, and then you bow down and worship it. If you're a poor person, you can only afford wood, so you find a piece of wood that won't rot, okay? And then you have this craftsman who is skilled, create this wonderful idol for you, but he's got to be careful so the idol doesn't fall over. And so, here in a couple more verses, he talks about this whole thing about who can you compare to God? Or is there another God that you compare God to? No, there's no other gods before him. And he says, what likeness will you set up for a comparison with him? So think about that for a moment. Who can compare to the God that we serve? There are no other gods like him. There are no other gods who created the universe. There are no other gods that always existed through all time, always will be, who's not limited by time or space or any other thing. And so Isaiah, and it's interesting, Isaiah wrote this obviously a long, long time ago. And he recognized the fact that there was nothing on earth that we can compare to God. And so when we look at this, we think of, well, it's so stupid, okay? So you get a chunk of gold, you get wood, and you make your idol, and you make your God, and you bow down and worship it. But we need to think about our own idols. What do we worship? What do we give our time and money and energy to that is just as silly as having someone make a god? I mean, think about it. We try to make God, though, in our own image a lot of times, and we think this is the way God ought to be, this is the way God ought to act, and when he doesn't do what we think we ought to do, we judge him and condemn him and all of these other things. And so the theme that Isaiah keeps going to, with whom will you compare God to? And so Jay's going to talk about that. We're going to talk about it again in a couple of days. There is no comparison. There is no comparison to the God that we serve. He is unique in all ways. He is all-powerful. He's all-knowing. He's always present. Think about that. Who are you going to compare it to? There's just no way that you can find anyone or anything that can compare to our God. Our God is so amazing and so awesome and always present. And he is, like Paul said, the God of all comfort. And so he is a God like none other. And so we need to realize that the only way that we can truly worship is to worship a God that really exists. Not something that we dream up, not something that we make, not something that we bow down to, that can tip over, that cannot hear us, cannot listen to us, cannot feel what we feel. There is no one like God. And so you look at Jesus, the same thing. Who can you compare Jesus to? There is no one who has ever walked the face of the earth that's anything close to Jesus. So when we look at this, I hope you're comforted with this, that our God is like no other God. Our God is like nothing else in the universe. Our God is the creator. Our God is awesome. And there is no one, there is nothing that compared to our God. So hopefully you'll join us again tomorrow as we continue in our journey through Isaiah chapter 40, and pray that God will comfort you during this time that is so hard for us to understand, that God will give you understanding. Thanks for joining us.